A very warm welcome to all. A very good afternoon to all our guests joining in from the UK. Uh, and a very good evening to all our guests joining in from India and South Asia. And a very good morning to all our guests joining in from the US and South America. Today is the 8th seminar in this second edition of this seminar series on the digital future for business and society, emerging perspectives on AI, blockchain, and IoT. This seminar series has been hosted jointly by Professor Yogesh Dwivedi, who is a professor of digital marketing and innovation, founding director of the Emerging Markets Research Centre, and co-director of research, School of Management, Swansea University, Wales, UK. Our co-host for this seminar series is Professor Ramakrishnan Raman, Director SIBM Pune, Dean Faculty of Management, Symbiosis International University, and Director Strategy and Development, Symbiosis. Our entire seminar series is jointly supported by Center for Technology, Innovation, Management and Enterprise, TIME, the University of Kent, UK, Digital Marketing and Analysis and Analytics, SIG, Academy of Marketing, Grenoble IAE-Graduate School of Management, a Grenoble INP School of the University of Grenoble, Alpes, the E-Business and E-Government SIG, British Academy of Management, and the UK Academy for Information Systems, UKAIS. To tell you about something about the seminar series itself, emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things undoubtedly offer a transformative potential for the augmentation and potential replacement of human tasks and activities within a wide range of industrial, intellectual, and social applications. The pace of change for this new AI technological age is staggering, with new breakthroughs in algorithmic machine learning and autonomous decision making, coupled with developments related to blockchain and IoT, engendering new opportunities for continued innovation. The impact of AI and other emerging technologies could be significant, with industries and sectors ranging from agriculture, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, supply chain, logistics, and utilities, all potentially being disrupted by the onset of these technologies. The seminar series on the digital future for business and society, emerging perspectives on AI, blockchain, and IoT will present various perspectives from a number of leading expert speakers to highlight the opportunities and challenges posed by the rapid emergence of these transformative technologies. Today, we have two eminent thought leaders with us, Professor Polixeni Vasilakopoulou and Professor Ilias Papas from the University of Agder, Norway. They will share their thoughts with us on the area of of human-centered AI in public service provision. To tell you something about our speakers for today, Professor Polixeni Vasilakopoulou is a professor at the Department of Information Systems, University of Agder, Norway. Her research focus is on the transformative potential of digital technology and the implications for work, organizations, and society. Prior to joining academia, she worked in management consulting for over a decade. She has published in leading journals including Information Systems Journal, Journal of Strategic Information Systems, Journal for Computer-Supported Collaborative Work, Scandinavian Journal of Information Systems, International Journal of Medical Informatics, and the Health Informatics Journal. Our other speaker for today is Professor Ilias Papas, who is a professor of information systems at the Department of Information Systems, University of Agder, Norway. His research and teaching activities include data science and digital transformation, social innovation and social change, user experience in different contexts, as well as digital marketing, e-services, and information technology adoption. He has published articles in peer-reviewed journals and conferences, including Journal of Business Research, European Journal of Marketing, Computers and Human Behavior, Information and Management, Psychology and Marketing, International Journal of Information Management, Journal of Systems and Software. Papas has been a guest editor for several journals, including Information and Management, Technological Forecasting and Social Change, TFSC, Information Systems Frontiers, Information Technology and People, and Information Systems and E-Business Management. Professor Papas is a recipient of URSIM and Mary Skłodowska Curie Fellowships. Professors, over to you. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you for having us over. Let me just quickly share my screen. You can all see, right?
Yes.
Thank you. So actually we're connecting from the south of Norway, because the University of Agder is based in Kristiansand, which is at the very southern tip of the peninsula here. We work both and closely collaborate in the information systems department in our university, and our department will be actually hosting the European Conference on Information Systems next year. So that could be a nice opportunity for you to come and visit us here up in the north. So you have already introduced me, so I don't think that there is a need to say much. My background is really, so my research has been revolving around this dynamics and the governance of information infrastructure. I have been doing a lot of work around information infrastructures and their evolution, digital technologies and their implications for work and organizations, and design-oriented studies with a sensitivity to user perspectives. And I think that Elias can also say.
Thank you. Thank you, Ksenia. And of course, thank you for the invitation, Yogesh, Santosh. This is great. It's our pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to present our work in this series of seminars. So, and thank you for the nice introduction, Santosh Elion. I would just say that these are the main three areas that I've been working on and try to summarize here. I've been a professor now at the University of Agder for 2 years. I've been in Norway for 6 years. And these 6 years have been really life-changing, I would say, in terms of networking and building our meeting friends from UK. That's how I met Yogesh, from India, US, and so on. Although we are in this south of Norway, as you saw, and it will be so nice to welcome all of you next year at the European Conference of Information Systems. That's one of the biggest conferences in information systems for those who are not familiar with the conference itself. It's a really big conference, so it's a huge event for us to be hosting it next June. Ksenia.
So I think I will take it right from the start, very, very briefly. So what are we discussing about, and what is AI? And the thing with AI is that it's a term that we use for all types of machines that can perform functions typically associated with humans, like perceiving, reasoning, and learning, mainly learning. So it's not a specific technology, it's an umbrella term. But this new AI spring that we are currently living at is linked to the successes in data-driven modeling and especially machine learning, which of course relate to the increased data availability and computational power that we have nowadays. So it's very common that people, when they refer to AI, they really mean machine learning. But artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s and has gone through many cycles of hype and winters. So we need to put AI in its overall context. And we know that nowadays AI applications are practically everywhere. So we get recommendations for different types of content that are based on AI models. AI models are used for fraud detection, for instance, in the banking services, the use of credit cards. We have chatbots that several of the chatbots that are nowadays launched are based on AI algorithms, and they provide customer service and interactions with humans in different kinds of settings. we have a lot of applications in healthcare, and with increasing quality, actually. So we have like pattern detection in dermatology, and we have radiology diagnostics, a lot of work going on in radiology. So AI is everywhere, but not all uses are equally sensitive. There are some AI applications that have a significant impact on humans, and these are the ones that are mostly like raising alarms and raise concerns for societies nowadays. And this is also a key point that relates to the risk-based approach that the EU has been advocating recently. And AI inevitably also is becoming a key part in public services. There are several reports coming out of official organizations, from the European Commission, from OECD, that describe different applications of AI in public services. They're mostly related to efficiency or effectiveness improvements, but also in some cases to enhancing citizens' value. For instance, there are applications related to profiling, for recommendations, for not recommendations for content, but for instance, recommendations for benefits, proactive approaches for poverty prevention. There are applications like that. Or there is profiling, which is used as decision support for subsidies allocation or for benefits allocation. There are applications for fraud detection for tax or fraud detection for welfare benefits. And of course, we also have chatbots in public service provision. So there is a lot of activity in the public sector. And within this activity, we also have some highly publicized cases of applications that have raised significant concerns, and in some cases, they have even been blocked by the courts. So here I have an example of a case which has been discussed quite a lot, at least among the community that works in AI, especially in the public sector. This is the case of the Dutch Siri system, a fraud detection system for benefits fraud. So a model that profiles people according to their propensity or to let's say to trick the system, the propensity to commit fraud related to benefits. 2 years ago, in February 2020, the District Court of Hague ordered the halt of the system due to its opaqueness and lack of sufficient safeguarding mechanisms to protect privacy. What was the problem with the system? The problem with the system was that the citizens or the people that were affected by it didn't have enough information about how this works. And we have similar stories from other places in Europe. For instance, there was a system, or there is still a system, a model that was developed for the public employment services in Austria to assess job seekers' chances for integration, that also raised significant concerns. Europe has a strong track record in prioritizing human values. In the US, there are also cases where concerns have been raised for the use of AI in the public sector, and there are some widely publicized cases. For instance, there was a case in Michigan related to a model for unemployment insurance fraud, a case in Pennsylvania about child welfare. but often courts there decline to hear and assess such cases. However, we see that there are rising concerns around this type of systems in public service delivery. And interestingly, this September, the United Nations actually had a call for urgent action over artificial intelligence risks to human rights. So what they actually called for was a moratorium on the sale and use of AI that poses a serious risk to human rights until adequate safeguards are put in place. And they called for filling the immense, that's how they call it, immense accountability gap, and they requested greater transparency. And I can read a quote from this United Nations text. So what they said is that artificial intelligence can be a force for good, helping societies overcome some of the great challenges of our times, but the AI technologies can have negative, even catastrophic effects if they're used without sufficient regard to how they affect people's human rights. So actually, the aim there is to put in place mechanisms that can protect people and can prioritize human values. And this brings us to this emerging discipline of human-centered AI. This is a discipline that aims to create AI-enabled systems that amplify and augment human abilities while preserving human control and ensuring ethically aligned design. It is a discipline that has its premises in HCI, computer science, and ethics. It brings a socio-technical perspective on AI design and deployment, and information systems research, and especially design-oriented information systems research, is especially well placed to contribute there. You can notice that there is a strong orientation towards augmentation of human abilities. So instead of merely automating, the idea is to move towards augmenting. And this is actually not a new aim, not a new research direction. Since the 60s, SRI's Augmentation Research Center was pursuing such a direction. So we are re-exploring human augmentation now that we are also reviving all the interest on AI, and we have the ability to use new technical capabilities that were not available earlier. So, this human augmentation, what it means in practical terms, the idea is that we will move towards higher levels of human control while also achieving high levels of computer automation. So it's not anymore a discussion about the trade-off between automation and control. It's the idea that we can try to bring the two together. So you can see we have one dimension here. One of the axes is about human control, while the other one is on automation. And we have different configurations, but the aim is to move towards the upper right side, to move towards human AI partnerships. And human-centered AI is not really only about the outcomes. It's not really only about human empowering and trustworthy AI, which is, of course, a key aim. And it's not really only about the process. It's not about only establishing processes that ensure accountability, that ensure participation, that have all the safeguarding mechanisms that also the UN is calling for. It's both. So it is about the process and it's about the outcomes. And the process is what leads to outcomes, but also there is a feedback loop when we evaluate the outcomes and we assess them against criteria that we have set for what is really human-centered AI, then we can identify opportunities and find ways to improve processes and ensure that we can have human-centered AI development and deployment processes. And the aim is to cover the whole AI life cycle. These life cycles include actually a multiplicity of actors and several stages. So they are comprehensive and lengthy processes that need to be covered and safeguarded. So now that we have positioned ourselves in the context of human-centered AI, we have described the directions, the main aims, the roots of this discipline that's emerging. We wanted to present two projects that we are both involved in. They belong to this area. They are about human-centered AI. I will talk about the first one, and then Elias will continue with the second project. So the first project is called AI for Users. And this is a project that takes a human-centered perspective for the introduction of AI in public services. So it is specific for public services and explicitly brings this human-centered perspective. The overall aim is to enhance public confidence and societal value. And there are two pillars in this project. The one pillar, the first pillar, is about enabling human control, and AI intelligibility is identified as a key thing here. So AI intelligibility is addressing the inscrutability problem, the black boxing, the opaqueness of some of these AI-enabled systems that we put in place in the public sector. It's about ensuring that people can understand AI in order to be able to control. And intentionally, we're not using the term explainable AI, XI, which has been mostly oriented to explanations for experts that need to make sense of opaque models. So when we have, let's say, models produced using deep neural networks, then we have the scientists that need to understand in order to improve or validate the models. So explainable AI has been mostly oriented to this type of audiences. While here we go beyond this type of experts and we address different user groups, including the citizens, including the case handlers, the public servants that are working with these AI-enabled tools, and the managers that have supervisory roles without having technical competence. The other pillar is about accountability. Accountability is important for ethically aligned AI. Those involved in AI development and deployment, they need to be able to justify their actions. So there are three things in accountability. We need to be, if I am an actor involved, it's important that I'm able to justify my actions. Then it's important to be able to respond to interrogations by those affected by AI deployment. And if things go wrong, if AI works in an unacceptable way, there is a liability issue, and liability should also be part of it. So this is a research project for 4 years. It will run till December 2024. It's currently running. We are following an action design research approach. and it's funded by the Norwegian Research Council. We are 3 research partners, the University of Agder. The University of Agder is also the leader in this research consortium, the University of Oslo, and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU. We have been fortunate to work closely with a major public organization in Norway that has a genuine interest in human-centered AI and the responsible deployment of AI in public services. This is an ongoing project, so we will show you some early findings, but a key thing that we have come to realize with all the involvement that we had up to now is that even when an organization has a genuine interest and the genuine will to aim for human-centered AI, this is not a straightforward thing to do. So what we did as one of the first steps is that we looked at one of the well-known frameworks for human-centered AI. So we looked at Google's PEAR Guidebook. This is actually developed more with a commercial setting in mind. And there are some other frameworks, not that many, but there are some frameworks for human-centered AI around. And the common characteristics is that they are developed towards businesses, business organizations, business-oriented organizations. So we started with Google PEAR Guidebook, which is one of the most well-known, and we mapped it to a public welfare use case. Our aim was to see how much of it would be applicable and to operationalize it within the organization we are working with. We identified concerns specific to public services, and we used them to adapt the framework. So, for instance, a key issue that it's quite challenging to tackle is what is really a legitimate AI use case? Is efficiency improvement a sufficient driver for a public organization? How can we balance between maximizing public good and optimizing for the individual? In practical terms, how can we ensure that the citizens do not feel that the key aim is to reduce costs, probably also to the expense of the services they get? And then another key issue, very, very relevant to the public sector context, is what data can be used and for what purposes? Because public organizations have access to a wealth of personal data that are collected or generated during service delivery. So it's a different situation than the situation that we have with private organizations that collect data based on consent and different conditions. Can these data that are collected for public service delivery be repurposed? And how far can organizations go from the original purpose? And then there is another issue which is quite unique when we are thinking of public services, and has to do with the universal coverage and service delivery for all. So it is important to accommodate user group diversity in terms of technical and administrative literacy. We're talking about digital literacy, and that's important, but we have also great differences among different user groups, different citizens in terms of their administrative literacy, in terms of the way that they understand public administration processes. And this affects the intelligibility approaches that we can use and what kind of representations are more suitable for conveying the logic of models. So those are specific concerns that need to be addressed when we're thinking of a public service delivery with the support or with AI or with AI-enabled systems. We developed the prototype using the adapted human-centered AI design framework that we derived by working with Google's PAIR and the specific identifications, adaptations that we identified through these concerns. And we worked with a specific use case on unemployment benefits. Actually, we worked with more than one use case, but here this is a prototype which brings a view of this unemployment benefits case. So the idea here is that we have a model which predicts the duration of unemployment, and this duration is used in order to tailor the services that are given to the people that seek unemployment benefits. The idea with this prototype is that it's kept as simple as possible. We have the aim is to avoid overwhelming citizens, but also to provide options for getting a lot of information about the model and its use. And we need to keep in mind that this is something that is addressing a wide range of users, older, younger, with different levels of educational backgrounds, and it has to be suitable, workable for all of them. So in this prototype, we include a process plan. It's not interesting for everybody, but we need to place the model and its use within the overall process. We provide information about the different data elements, actually information groups that are used, and the rationale for using them. And an interesting challenge is that, especially when you have a lot of data, it's possible to develop models that have enormous numbers of features. So then you have to group different pieces of information in information groups and then provide the rationale. We also provide some graphical representation of the impact of different elements, different features of the model in the outcome. This is the relative importance. It's based on supply values. And this is also provided for different types of user groups, like how it works for the younger people, how it works for the older people. And these were all developed in close collaboration with the public administration organization that is really working towards providing a solution that can be as transparent as possible and that will allow control to the citizens. We are currently working on user studies, and this is ongoing, so we already see some interesting reactions from different user groups, but more will come when we conclude the data collection and analysis. So this is the status of the current interesting things that are coming out of this project, which is still ongoing. And I think that now it's better if I stop sharing and Elias can share his screen and move to the other project.
Absolutely. That will be. Am I sharing the? Yes, it's good. Okay, thank you. Great. So we have been talking so far. As a reminder, we started on human-centered AI. We talked about human control, about ethical design, so being aligned on that, and also empowerment and augmentation. Not empowerment. Why did I say empowerment? I meant augmentation. So we have these three pillars, and the AI for Users project is focusing on that, on those two. And now, time to talk a bit about the augmentation and how can we enhance and augment human intelligence. And this is something that we have been working on a different project. And for this, the project is called Frida at Work. So what is Frida? Frida is a chatbot, and it's the chatbot of the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration. In short, we call it NAV. That is based on the Norwegian name of this public organization. And so they have created a chatbot, and they are trying to improve it, to develop it, and to do research on the human AI interactions based on this chatbot. So NAV, the public organization, they invited the research community about 2 years ago to work on user studies on how they can develop and improve the services and the interactions with the citizens. So we decided to focus on the chatbot. And does this look a bit weird? It does,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why does it look? Looks okay now? Yes, I don't know what happened. PowerPoint went crazy there. Sorry. So we decided to focus on the chatbot. Now on the left we have the citizens, and the citizens, when they have some issues, they will want to contact NAV. Sometimes they will interact with a chatbot. Sometimes they will interact with a service agent, and sometimes what we found out during this project is that the service agent themselves, they will use the chatbot in different occasions, in different ways, and that was what triggered us to go further towards this process. And this really fitted well on what we had in mind around on human AI partnerships. So for this project, we work directly with the employees of the public service organization, and we interact through several workshops and different activities. So why are we interested into that? So going back to the discussion on human control versus automation, in the case of NAV, we have the human service agents where we have low automation and high human control. And then we have the chatbots, a traditional version of the chatbots, where we have typically high automation and the low human control. So we're positioning ourselves on the top right corner, and that is where we are heading. That's what we believe with human-centered AI towards human AI partnerships. So high level of human control and also high automation. And we are trying to figure out how we get there through the activities in this project. We're trying to add to the knowledge, both research-wise and also for the practitioners, for the organization in this case, for NAV, how we can go towards human AI partnerships. So what did we do? We have a series of activities in this project. And so over 1 year, we started working on this about 2 years ago. So over a year, we ran a series of workshops, and we started with that invitation from NAV, from the public organization. And then the first set of workshops in which we focused on problem formulation and trying to better understand what the focus is and what the problem is, so we can further be more specific on the problem that we will be working on with the employees. And in these workshops, we have collaborated with people from the management and the service agent themselves. So in parallel, we were doing also literature reviews and interviews with people working for NAV to understand their abilities, to understand what are their priorities, to get a very good understanding of the different contextual factors. And so these activities, they help us to design the intervention, that we use to pave the way towards human AI partnerships. And this intervention, the goal was that we wanted to help them perceive what they can do with the chatbots. And so the intervention includes sharing experiences and the sense giving from technical teams and other service agents. And these were focused on the last 4 workshops. So what did we do exactly? So in the project, we frame the process that we followed, and the process that we followed for the whole project and the specific intervention, not just the data collection activity that precedes the intervention, but this data collection that happens within the series of workshops over a year as the intervention by itself. So we are aiming to help the service agents discover action possibilities. So the affordances, the perceived affordances when using technologies like the chatbot in this case. And this means that we are going through a guided discovery process. So through the series of workshops, then the service agents engage with other service agents that maybe they are working in different parts of the organization, also with people from the management and also people from the technical team. And through the interactions and the engagement in the dialogue, they discuss how they understand the chatbot, how each other they use the chatbot, and they go through this discovery process. And this understanding that emerges from the workshops and from the interactions can be used for further development of chatbot's functionality and for service delivery processes. So our goal here, what we managed to do, was to build joint knowledge and joint knowledge together with the service agents, together with the organization. So instead of ourselves as researchers analyzing processes and practices to identify areas for improvements, for how we can improve the chatbot, and then going back to the organization explaining what they can do, instead we spent all this time working together with the practitioners and facilitating their own discovery process. By doing this, we end up in what we call a joint inquiry on how we can solve the problem. And through these interactions and through this intervention that lasted about a year in a project that we have been working the past 2 years, and the findings that we have from it, we're contributing towards the creation of chatbot-enabled service augmentation. And we have several findings coming from this project. We would like to highlight 2 of them as lessons learned from this project and these 2 years of interaction with NAV. So the first one is a theory-based intervention, and here we use affordances as a sensitizing concept. So the main contribution is not the affordances themselves, which is a very good start, but the main contribution here is that we need to design theory-based interventions. And here we are using affordances as the sensitizing concept, so making sense of what human agents human service agents can do with the chatbot. So, for example, a service agent may perceive the action possibilities by interpreting the symbolic expressions of the chatbot, or by learning about someone else's technology use. So how is a different agent using the chatbot, then sharing that experience, and then coming up with new perceived action possibilities. Or by sense-giving support from the technical team, because they are there, then they can help users better understand technology. This is quite important because helping the service agents, those people that are using the chatbot, to discover new affordances that they had not noticed before. It can accelerate innovation. It can lead to new features, for example, for the chatbot, and improve performance within the organization and within in terms of the services that they offer to the public. And with emerging technologies, when they afford new actions, it is the experienced practitioners they are very well placed they are able to flexibly recombine these new actions to generate new practices for transformative effects. So finishing this project now, this project ended 1 month ago, we see that NAV entered a really creative process of affordance discovery. And it brings together technology knowledge with service delivery expertise. And being able to discover these action possibilities by the human agents is a key step for moving towards human AI partnerships. And the second lesson has exactly to do with this, with human AI partnerships. So the potential of developing new human AI hybrid models is clear. I think there is literature that they discuss on that. What we found that was missing a bit from the literature was a focus on employees, on human agents, and how they use technologies like the chatbot, while the main focus has been on the citizens, the interaction between the citizens and the chatbot, rather than the employees and how they use it. And so our findings here contribute to that part of the literature on human AI interaction and partnerships, and the potential of AI to reshape work and further service automation. So we describe how chatbots can contribute to the improvement of the interactions with the citizens, not only by automating responses, which has been a more traditional way of how we use the chatbot, but also supporting service agents in their own tasks. So they ensure that there are complementarities between automation and augmentation. For example, a service agent use themselves the chatbot while at the same time talking to a citizen in a different window on their computer. And they can use that to get information faster that way, for instance. Or in going more towards augmentation, then the service agent, while interacting with the citizen, then the chatbot could offer suggestions to the service agent based on how the discussion is progressing. And then the service agent can decide if they want to send these suggestions or edit them before responding to the citizen. So they work, the service agent and the chatbot, they work as a team. And they bring together the ability of the chatbot to quickly process information and the ability of the humans to show empathy and assess context. The last two were, I think, the main key points coming from almost every interaction with NAV, that is why humans are superior, or at which part of the interaction humans are superior compared to the chatbot, is that they understand empathy and even more context. So the moment that they understand context, they can solve a problem right away, something that the chatbot has a really hard time understanding. So from these two projects, we and all the relevant literature, I think we agree that human-centered AI is well suited for public services. We want AI to be collaborative, augmentative, and to enhance human productivity and quality of life. That is how human-centered AI should be. And its application on the public services fits very nicely. So in order to achieve that, in order to have truly human-centered AI, we need to have inclusive AI. We need to have AI for all. And in order to achieve that, we need inclusive AI tools to consider inclusivity both in the development and in the use. We want the algorithms to be designed by diverse teams, training data to be representative, tools to be accessible to a diverse group of users. Users that we can ensure they engage participation into the use of AI and eventually reach empowerment and success. So for human-centered AI, we need to create AI-enabled systems that amplify and augment human abilities while preserving human control and ensuring ethically aligned design. Thank you very much. Questions?
Dear participants, request you to kindly post your questions on the chat window, and we will have our professors try and answer them. We've got the first question, Professor Ilyas and Professor Shinya, from Professor Vijay Kumar Bharti, who says, can you please enumerate what were the critical public services that were selected for the project?
Actually, I just want to clarify, those are two different projects, right? So for the first project, we looked at services where there was already a model that has been in the process of being developed, let's say, because the main criterion was not the criticality of the public service, was rather the availability of some AI-enabled application that we can use in order to try things out. There was a case on a sick leave duration that was prioritized by the organization. This has to do also with the priorities of the organization and the data availability. For the chatbot case, the chatbots are used for different types of services, and again, it's not our priorities; it's the priorities of the organization that has launched the chatbot. So they have a set of services towards parents that just get kids, like for new parents, because there are a service for this user group, chatbot service for this user group, chatbot services for unemployment. There are chatbot services that have to do with now I'm trying to remember the user groups. Certainly it was young parents and it was certainly unemployment there, but yeah, I don't remember. What do you remember, Ilya? What other?
For what? Sorry.
For the chatbot. What kind of services they were supporting? Certainly those two groups I remember. But beyond that,
this was 2 years ago when we started. Why 2 years ago? Because that was the time when the NAV, when the customer, the client, said that we want to improve the chatbot, and we have these cases. But from the moment that we started talking with the human agents, the reason that they were using the chatbot was, I think, became secondary. So either it was for getting a leave, or employment benefits, or the parent or sick leave. The way that they would use the chatbot, so the functionality and the affordances that they could see, it was context specific. So that was a finding, and then we could move on into what more they could see when they were using the chatbot.
Professor Yogesh, please. Sir, you're on mute.
So
yes,
very, very interesting, obviously, talk, and the issues that you have highlighted, accountability and augmenting intelligence, human intelligence, all these are actually center of discussion. If we look at news article, every day we can see few news article around it. I'm just very curious to know, in case of chatbot, so have you managed to see the kind of effectiveness of using the chatbot for service agents? So in what ways actually it really enhanced the value? Now, that's one thing. And another thing, what if any challenges they faced when using? Obviously, service agents are specialized, trained, and all those things. And how then, what that means for citizens? I mean, if the citizens using same service, same chatbot as service agents, how do you see differences between these two? So obviously these are three questions, but any insight will be helpful.
Thank you, Yogesh. It's a spot on the question, because initially when we were working on the project, we tried to address both the citizen aspect and the employee aspect, but then we're working on a publication based on this. So initially we were identifying affordances both for citizens and for human agents. And obviously, because the technology is the same, there's an overlap between the affordances that as a human someone sees. And that was not so interesting. So we dropped that part, because there's a lot of research on how the citizens are using the chatbot, and that's it. And we moved on to this second part that we figured out that, okay, there's more potential on that. For example, the informing part, what the chatbot can do, allowing informing, that is for the citizen as well. They find information, and also the agents were telling us that, oh yeah, it's a lot easier for me to use the chatbot to find quickly information, because I know all the keywords, the right keywords to put and get the information quickly. And sometimes I want to double check, for example, maybe there have been updates the past 3-6 months on regulations that I'm not sure, because I didn't need it. And now the chatbot, I will use the chatbot as my personal assistant to ask questions quickly, while maybe I'm on the phone or I'm chatting on another channel with the humans. So that was quite interesting for us to see it. And then the monitoring part, so they could monitor, the chatbot allowed them to monitor how many, for example, citizens are contacting the nav. One example was that, so sometimes it happens that there's something wrong on the website, or something doesn't work. So suddenly you see a surge of incoming requests from citizens to the organization. That is like that raises a flag of something is wrong here. So the chatbot was allowed them to monitor better these potentially problematic areas. So if there's a surge, probably something is wrong. So they were telling us that maybe some information were not up to date, or some other channel was off, and they were they don't want people to call them. That is very time consuming, right? And through the discussions, for example, that people were using the chatbot as a personal assistant in a way, right? That is not itself so novel finding as an affordance, but what was a novelty there, that through this intervention and the workshops with the human agents, they managed to, in a way, help each other discover new affordances. And now training them onto how to discover new affordances, they said that they can continue doing this in the future. So that is the affordance is there, right? So, but we need to be able to see it, and that is what this project helped them do. And the last part that I think the distilling also was quite an interesting affordance in terms of if you have too much information, the chatbot can help you narrow down what is more important than others, and giving the essence of what you should keep to make you work more efficiently.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Elias. Very interesting to hear, obviously, which I assume as well that the service agents had those specific keywords,
Yeah.
the personalized keywords that actually, if they use, they get the right answer. While citizens might not be obviously may not have that competency. So I mean, one thing that emerges obviously through this, that how to make citizens equally competent or suitably competent to use these kind of intelligence services. But obviously, yeah, this is very interesting, because even when I go sometime to banking services, for example, lots of banks now has these chatbots, and you try to find out something and you don't get, but then we try to think and put alternative keywords and all, then you probably get some suitable answers. So this is one challenge that probably I have myself encountered, which many other citizens would do as well. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. In fact, Professor Senya and Professor Elias, in fact, I would also want to share a personal incident that happened with me as well. This happened last year, and one of my cards had expired, and I had moved out of that banking system. So I wanted to get it deleted from my Amazon account. I couldn't do that myself online, and hence I had called the customer service so to help me out do the same. He was kind enough to do that for me, and he also went on to say that this is actually available on our system, and you can go here to this link. And I said, I tried searching for a long time, I didn't find, and hence I tried to call you. He said, I'll take that on advisement, and I'll put a note in to the team so that they can better track or tweak the keywords so that search features become easier, so that you do not have to spend that extra time calling. You could have found it out yourself. So I could actually relate to when you were saying about chatbots and anyways and customer service agents, the triad that you spoke about. I could actually relate back to that, and it's very interesting talk that you presented. Thank you. We have a couple of questions as well. We have Professor Vijay Kumar who's also asked another question, who's saying, please comment if your AI model can be applied to certain segments such as job training for the transgender community in developing economies such as India. Also, Professor Papas mentioned the keywords such as human-centric AI and empathize. So please comment if a design thinking approach was applied while prototyping the model.
This goes to the AI for users model.
Maybe I can say something about the first question, actually. Because the models that we have not developed, they are developed by the organization, and this is also part of the specific concerns that we have when working with this kind of organizations. It's not the legal basis for sharing the data beyond the organization is actually not clear. So the data stay with the organization, and the models are trained by the organization. So the models are trained using specific features that relate to the context from where the data are taken. There is special care to ensure fairness. So especially some protected features are not in there. So I mean, things that have to do with the gender probably in some cases are not even allowed to be included. It depends on the model. So in general, my answer is that for this specific use case, the transgender community in developing economies, it would be important to use models that have been trained on data that come from that part of the world, and that relate to the behaviors and digital traces of people that are included in the target groups. So these models that we're using in Norway wouldn't be suitable for that context, in short.
Yes. For the second question, because we did not develop a model on the Frida, on the chatbot case. I'm not sure what you're thinking for the model. Are you referring to the intervention, maybe?
Yes, I presume it's the intervention that design thinking approach being used in that space.
So this is almost an action research project, I would say. So because we are working very closely with the practitioners, and the empathy part, I mentioned the empathy, that is something that is missing from the chatbot, together with understanding context, which relates also to the previous question. So the chatbot has a hard time understanding empathy or context, and that is where, that's why we need to have these partnerships where the human agent, the service agent, is using the chatbot to, it's not the empathy part of the design thinking process that you are thinking, I assume. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Elias, for that answer. Thank you, Professor Polisani, for that answer as well. Thanks a lot, professors, for your convincing answers. Thank you note from Professor Vijay Kumar Bharti as well. Okay, so we do not seem to have any further questions. In that case, we would go ahead and call this seminar series for today's event to a close. But before that, let me take the opportunity to thank you very much, both Professor Polisani and Professor Elias as well, for taking out the time. This was a very interesting area that you shared, how both in public service organizations where the amount of data is huge and also can be misappropriated and misused very easily, use of AI, being human-centric, putting the user at the center of the focal place, that is of utmost importance. And where in the second study as well, where you talked about the chatbots and how the customer service agent along with the chatbots, brilliant insights. Thank you both Professor Polisani and Professor Elias for taking out your time and sharing your research work with all of us. Thank you, Professor Yogesh sir, as always, for helping us organize this and bringing such great professors on board. Thank you all for your time, and you all have a great day and a great evening ahead.
Yeah, just want to say that.
Yes, sir.
The obviously control on AI and accountability, these are the prominent issue in terms of use of AI. If things go wrong, who is accountable? Is it machine or is it human, or both? And who going to actually compensate those issues or harms that might have occurred? So this is obviously a wonderful project that you both are doing. I'm very pleased to hear. Thank you so much, Elias and Polisani, for being here and for presenting. I'm sure our audience has benefited a lot. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and for inviting us to this very successful and popular series that you have been organizing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Papas. Thank you, Professor Polisani. Thank you, Yogesh sir. Thank you all, guys.